This week on ANN, Ted Wilson prays for the President of the Philippines.
ADRA works with schools, vendors, and people with albinism in Tanzania amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
And an Adventist in Australia is awarded SA Taxi Driver of the Year.
These stories and more coming up.
Thank you for joining us this week.
First in the news, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte stood reverently as Seventh-day Adventist Church leader Ted N.C. Wilson prayed during a meeting that had been expected to be brief, but lasted 36 minutes as Duterte spoke about his faith and Wilson gave an informal Bible study on servant leadership.
Wilson, who led an Adventist delegation to the Malacañan Palace, expressed appreciation to Duterte for supporting religious liberty, promoting healthy lifestyle choices, and demonstrating the reconciliation ministry of Jesus in granting amnesty to former rebels who have laid down their arms after hearing the gospel through Adventist World Radio.
Wilson and his wife Nancy are traveling for 3 weeks in the Philippines as part of their first international trip since COVID-19 struck in March of 2020. A highlight of the trip was the baptism of 500 former rebels and their leader on Mindoro Island on Sabbath, November 13.
The former rebels gave their hearts to Jesus after listening to Adventist World Radio, and the government has taken the remarkable step of offering an amnesty to end a conflict that has lasted a half century and claimed 40,000 lives.
With Duterte's consent, Wilson opened a small black Bible and gave a Bible study on Micah 6:8, which says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Wilson said to the president, "This is the formula, Your Excellency, for those who want to help people to lead."
At Wilson's suggestion, Duterte readily stood for a prayer that closed the meeting. The Philippine health minister and a government senator, who were also in attendance, stood as well. Afterward, Wilson presented Duterte with a Bible, The Great Controversy and Steps to Christ, and a pen engraved with the Adventist Church logo, which he told the president could be used to underline verses in the Bible.
This was not the first time that Wilson shared a Bible passage and prayed with a world leader. He has made it a practice to engage spiritually with world leaders since becoming president of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists in 2010. And the leaders with whom he has met include the presidents of Ghana, Malawi, Angola, Paraguay's vice president, Peru's parliamentary speaker, Uganda's president, and Egypt's prime minister. Wilson also presents leaders with Bibles and books by Ellen White, who co-founded the Adventist Church.
If you'd like to know more about Wilson's trip to the Philippines and the baptism of the former rebels, visit adventist.news.
The Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, in Tanzania has been working in the country to lend support during the pandemic, but shifted its efforts to focus on breaking down barriers to COVID-19 awareness and prevention. Reportedly, part of the dilemma involved the local government's position earlier this year that vaccines were not necessary and that there were no plans to receive COVID-19 vaccines being distributed in other countries. With the election of Tanzania's new president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, the administration reversed its stance on vaccines and is working to get vaccines distributed throughout the country. In its community research, ADRA learned that using buses and/or motorcycles as transportation increased the contact and infection rates among students and youth. Additionally, schools did not have hand washing facilities installed. Lack of proper hygiene in the markets also made vendors, a majority of whom were female business owners, more susceptible to COVID-19 due to exposure to all different kinds of people, including tourists. Another underserved population affected by the coronavirus are people with albinism who no longer have access to quality healthcare services provided by charitable organizations. These closed due to lack of funding to continue operations. Country Director for ADRA Tanzania, Sam Oyorte, shares that ADRA will work with 9,000 public market vendors to demonstrate proper use of hand washing, wearing face masks, and keeping a distance of at least 6 feet based on World Health Organization guidelines. People with albinism who have been impacted by the pandemic will also receive support from ADRA in partnership with local Adventist churches who will voluntarily train the community on establishing vegetable gardens to improve their household's nutrition. Oyorte says ADRA will continue to provide support because there is such great need. We are also hopeful that our fellow men can understand the severity of this health crisis and help minimize this deadly virus through their involvement for prevention. The virus won't go anywhere unless we all do something about it together, but we need people to realize the virus is real and that we can do something about it.
Stirling Adventist Church member Tim Welch has been awarded South Australia Taxi Driver of the Year. The award is part of the 2021 SA Tourism Awards, which recognize and celebrate the outstanding contributions of local businesses and exceptional customer service. Welch, who has worked as a taxi driver for the past 22 years, stood out from the 4,000 taxi drivers in the state due to his exceptional service. He's also been recognized for bringing wheelchair-accessible taxis to Adelaide Hills. Welch says, "My Christian faith leads me to treat every customer with the utmost respect, regardless of circumstances. I always look for an opportunity to share my faith. Many of the passengers become my friends, and I look for the opportunity to encourage people who are in difficult circumstances, people with substance abuse, loneliness, social hardship." Welch says 8 people have visited his church through friendly conversations in his cab. Originally from England, Welch has had other careers but enjoys being a taxi driver and shares his love for Jesus when he has the opportunity.
Students from Seminole County Public Schools in the U.S. state of Florida are involved in a 1-year internship at Advent Health in the Central Florida area.
These interns package blood culture and COVID kits, helping control contamination at emergency departments across the region.
Check out how these students are gaining work skills at Advent Health.
These are my Project Search interns. They're doing a 1-year internship to work on job skills.
15 times 50 is 750.
We're packaging blood culture and COVID kits.
They have been an integral part in our success for controlling blood culture contaminations. Every year, our emergency departments in the Orlando area collect roughly 36,000 blood cultures.
What about our COVID kit?
The Project Search team has really helped bridge the gap for us.
So they have to make sure their station is fully stocked.
That kit contains a couple blood culture bottles if it's an adult, an additional bag that you send to lab, a couple alcohol prep pads. They're all putting them in bags and they pack them in boxes of 50. And then that gets stored in the warehouse.
Perfect, Bill.
They're creating approximately 1,000 a day. And just by them doing that saves us time and saves us labor.
How many kits are in there?
50.
50. They're able to realize each kit helps one person. It benefits the whole Central Florida division of Advent Health, as well as it makes purposeful work for my interns.
It's awesome. Honestly, it's just everybody does their part. Everybody does what they're supposed to do. I'm just happy to be able to get the opportunity.
Good job, great work today.
Coming up, we sit down with Adventist Teams manager Alyssa Truman to talk about the new initiative.
We'll be right back after the break.
Welcome back.
On November the 1st, the Seventh-day Adventist World Church launched a new app called Adventist Teams in an effort to grow the church's presence in the digital world.
The app will allow members around the world to source and distribute quality biblical content for friends and family in the digital space.
Adventist Teams is a result of the Worldwide Adventist Church's focus on total member involvement.
We sat down with Adventist Teams manager Alyssa Truman to learn how you can be involved.
Hi, Alyssa. Welcome to ANN. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You are the manager of Adventist Teams, which is the new initiative from the Adventist Church. You launched on November 1st. How's the launch going?
The launch is going fantastic. We have over 6,000 digital missionaries globally who have joined. And every day we're seeing people who are just engaging and interacting with the app. I'm getting messages through WhatsApp and Discord. It's been a really exhilarating experience to see the response.
That's great. So you're seeing them share a lot of our content and they're interacting with it in that way. That's so cool. If I'm a member, I am a member, excellent. But if I'm watching this and I'm a member and I want to join Adventist Teams, first of all, how would I do that? And secondly, how do you want me to interact with the app?
I love that question. So to answer the first part, the first thing you should do is go to the Apple App Store or the Android Play Store and download Adventist Teams, the app. So you can go on, get that downloaded, and then go to adventistteams.org and you can register there, and we'll set you up and find you an excellent leader who speaks the same language as you, because we think that's important for mentorship reasons. And then we'll give you an invitation link, and then you can just log right in and get started doing missions. As far as how to interact with the app, this is important.
And before you go on, how many languages right now is Adventist Teams in?
Excellent question. We are in Tagalog, English, Spanish, and Portuguese, so 4 languages. We are in the midst of working on a number of other languages, so hopefully by spring 2022, we'll probably have, I would guess, 4 to 5 more.
That's great. Okay, so how do you interact?
Okay, so for me personally, I find different things work for different people. I like to post certain things on just my social media feed. So maybe I find a great resource about parenting. I'm a mother, I have a lot of friends who are mothers and fathers, so I might actually just share that on my feed. So a lot of things you can just share on your feeds to start kind of creating engagement, conversation with your friends. Mm-hmm. And then the other way I do it is I often will be praying about a specific person. And I feel like, okay, God is impressing me that I want to talk to this person about prayer. So I go on the app and I can use this little section called tags, and I can find a resource under prayer that they can use. So I will either see what people are posting, or maybe I'll even just look at a resource and I'll pray like, God, who can I send this to? So I think there's different ways. I don't just like spam my wall, for instance. I try to be very, very thoughtful in how I do it so that people are engaging and interacting with the content I share. And that's how I recommend it for everybody.
That's awesome. So if I work for the church, or if I'm a part of a ministry, and I am, how would I get my ministry on Adventist Teams? Because that's part of the app as well, is we have ANN, which you're watching right now on Adventist Teams. There's other ministries like the different divisions, South Pacific Division and other. How do I get my ministry onto Adventist Teams?
So the best way to do that is to actually just, when you log into the app, there's a section for help. If you go into that help area, it gives you the way to like connect with us. And I actually just had somebody from a different institution contact me, and they contacted me through Discord, which is where part of our community is based, and we got them set up to go. You can also just contact me like here at the General Conference, through my email, whatever it might be. Just connect with us and we'll get you set up.
Now, you're not only looking for people to to share on social media, and you're not only looking for ministries, but you're actually looking for people to create content to share as well on Adventist Teams.
Yeah, this is my favorite part. I'm so glad that you brought that up. So I am a creative, and I have always wanted to be able to use my skills for God and to help the greater church. And often when we create things, it's like my 5 friends. You know what I mean? It's like you don't get a lot of reach with it. But there are incredible Adventist content creators all over the world. And this is going to be able to get their content viewed by more people, to be used by more people, to be seen by more people. And that content that maybe you created on prayer that maybe would have reached 100 people can now reach thousands of people. Yeah. So one of the things you can do when you come into Adventist Teams, it's actually going live in January, that you can upload any content that you have created, and all the digital missionaries globally will be able to utilize it.
That's great. So if you have content that you're creating and you're an Adventist and you want to share it, you can go on Adventist Teams and share it with all all the people there, and all the people can share it with you. So like if you like what one of your friends has created, you can share it through Adventist Teams. So that's really cool. One of the parts about Adventist Teams that I've noticed is that it's sort of like I don't want to say competition, but you kind of sort of, the more you interact, the higher level you go up, and then you get certain perks. You get leadership training and different perks like that. Why did you guys decide to go that direction, and what do you hope to see come out of that?
Instead of calling it competition, I like to call it mentorship.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds much better. And actually it is what it is. I believe actually that the greatest power in our church is sitting in pews. And so a lot of them have the ability to lead and guide others. So what we do is the more you interact and you're sharing content, and the more people under you are sharing content, you actually progress through, starts with a junior level leader. Wow, that's like a tongue twister, isn't it?
You get points for saying that.
Points for saying that. And then there's a senior level leader, and then a global level leader, and then it ends with being a servant level leader. And so the more your team is interacting, you're having to invest in them. You're having to inspire them, encourage them. And so what we do is we've actually created mentorship trainings. So there's a monthly training for each of these different levels of leadership. And we're going to be bringing in different leaders throughout the church to come and talk about how to lead, how to inspire in digital evangelism, how to create new content. They'll have a 30-minute at the top level servant leader. They'll have a 30-minute one-on-one conversation with a top church leader, just in this private Zoom. And so what we really are trying to do is encourage our lay members to step up and to lead. This is kind of like what our church was founded on. It was a bunch of people who just stepped up and led. And so we want to be able to encourage all the members all over the world to be able to do the same thing.
That's awesome. So in January, people are going to be able to post their own content. I know you're doing a special prayer initiative starting in December, but what's next for Adventist Teams? What can we hope to see in the future?
There's so many things coming. So one of the things I'm excited about is we believe it's very important for Adventists to be able to access content in their own language. Yeah. So one of the big things that's coming out is by the end of next year, we're hoping to have it in at least a dozen languages. So not only you being able to use it in your own language, but also being able to share content from your own language. So that's a big thing. So we are going to be doing something where we are having prayer warriors. We'll be able to connect and pray for people who have been writing the church. So that we kind of what you're referring to, the prayer initiative. And the other thing that I'm kind of excited that's coming is that actually will be a Bible study connection, so that you can get people started on Bible studies and you'll know where they are. And so you can be able to interact with them and encourage them and inspire them to keep going at the same time.
That's awesome. So if people are watching this right now and they want to join Adventist Teams, what is the website that they can go, besides if there's a website and an app, so they can either download it from the Apple or the, what is the
Play
other
Store.
one? Play Store, or they can go to the website. So, but how can they?
So the first thing you want to do is if you want to use it on your phone, which I like to have it at my fingertips, so download it. So go download it from the store, and then after that, go to AdventistTeams.org, and that's where you register to actually create an account with Adventist Teams.
That's great. So we hope to see you on Adventist Teams, and we will obviously be updating our viewers as Adventist Teams keeps going.
Coming up, David Trim is here for This Week in Adventist History.
But up next, Adventist Mission has a story about a young girl sharing Jesus in South Korea.
Hi, VL. How are you? Are you okay? Dear VL, I can't even remember how long we've been staying at home now because of this virus. For now, it's just nice to hear your voice and see your face. Nothing beats playing outside in the dirt though. Which reminds me, are your hands clean? Yes! Mommy and Daddy says not a lot of kids get COVID-19, but it's always nice to be extra safe. We should wash our hands before picking our nose. Washing our hands protects us, but it also keeps us from spreading the virus in case we touch something dirty. Let's always be clean and safe, okay? Love, Joey.
Why is there evil in the world? Are Christians hypocrites? Is the Bible a fairy tale? Does Jesus love everyone? Church doesn't feel relevant to my life. Is God even real? You have questions? Let's talk about it. I Believe Bible.
Welcome back.
Sehi wasn't excited when her family moved to the countryside of South Korea. She was sad because she didn't have any other friends at her new church.
But when her mother suggested that she pray and invite kids to Vacation Bible School, something amazing happened.
Adventist Mission has more.
Sehi moved with her family to the countryside after living in a big city in South Korea. Her mom was excited about the move. "Moving here is an answer to prayer," she said, but Sehi wasn't so sure about that. She felt sad that she had to leave her friends in the city. In the countryside, Sehi learned new things. Her mom planted a vegetable garden, and Sehi and her younger brother took care of the lettuce, cucumbers, and corn. Sehi made sure that the vegetables got enough water. She picked weeds so the vegetables would have plenty of room to grow. Before Sehi knew it, the garden was filled with long, dark green cucumbers, round heads of light green lettuce, and green ears bursting with yellow corn. Sehi loved to eat fresh vegetables picked straight from the garden. Her mom said the neighbors also might like to eat fresh vegetables. Sehi helped pick cucumbers, lettuce, and corn to give away. The neighbors were so happy to receive the vegetables. Sehi felt good as they smiled and thanked her. Sometimes they even gave her gifts of homemade bread and pickled vegetables. Sometimes she returned home with more food than when she left. The Bible teaches that the more you share, the more you receive. Proverbs 11:24 says, "Those who give generously receive more." Still, Sehi was sad because she didn't have any young friends at church. The only other kid was her brother. Her mom saw Sehi's sad eyes and suggested that she pray for her school classmates and invite them to Vacation Bible School at the church. Sehi wrote special invitations for her classmates, but she was shy about giving the invitations away. What if the kids didn't come? "Don't worry," her mom said. "It's not your job to persuade them to come to Vacation Bible School. That's God's job." Sehi and her mom handed out the invitations to her classmates. Not one of them came to Vacation Bible School, but one of the boys came to church on Sabbath. The boy lived with his grandparents and didn't know anything about Jesus. He didn't have any friends at school. He was so happy to learn about Jesus at church, and he immediately announced that he wanted to come every Sabbath. At home, Sehi's mom told her that even though no one had come to Vacation Bible School, God had blessed the invitations by bringing the boy to church. "He received that very last invitation that you passed out," her mom said. Sehi was delighted. "He wouldn't have met Jesus if we hadn't shared the invitations," she said. That night, she prayed a special prayer for her new friend. "Dear God, thank you for leading him to church," she prayed. "Please let him and his family know and trust you. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen."
Watch this and other mission stories online by visiting AdventistMission.org. Then click on videos at the top.
And finally, for today's episode, let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history.
This week, the 12th session of General Conference was held in Battle Creek, Michigan.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On November 12, 13, and 14 in 1873, the 12th General Conference session met in Battle Creek in the U.S. state of Michigan. In the church's first quarter century, sessions were supposed to be held annually, but only 8 months had passed since the 11th session concluded in March 1873. This is the shortest interval ever between two sessions. As James White explained at the opening meeting of the session, the decision to meet earlier than usual had been taken in order to facilitate extending the young denomination's work on the Pacific coast and to arrange to send a missionary to Switzerland. The tiny group of Swiss believers actually had a delegate present, Albert Vuillumière, the leader of the small Tramelin church. At this 12th session, George I. Butler was re-elected General Conference President and E.B. Gaskell as Treasurer. But for the first time since the founding GC session in 1863, Uriah Smith was not elected Secretary. Instead, his place was taken by pioneer educator Sidney Brownsberger. But at the 13th session the following August, Smith was to return as Secretary. On November 17, 1860, Henry S. Shaw was born in the U.S. state of Illinois. Henry was converted at the age of 22, started literature evangelistic work at age 24, and married at the age of 28 to Celia Hicks. As a coal porter, Henry was so successful that in 1891, aged 31, he was put in charge of literature evangelistic work in the Illinois Conference, and the following year was ordained. Henry and Celia were then sent to the U.S. South, then regarded as a mission field, where Henry did pioneer evangelistic work. In 1896, he became the founding president of Oakwood Industrial School, today's Oakwood University. Shaw, who you see in this photo, later served as president of the Minnesota Conference for 3 years, then as first superintendent of the Saskatchewan Mission in Canada, and as second president of the Western Canada Union Conference. He found the winters too harsh and at his own request was called to pastor in California. In 1919, he was elected Central California Conference president, a post he held until 1928, when he suffered a nervous breakdown as a result of overwork and was forced to retire. Henry Shaw died on October 5, 1931, as the result of a car accident. That was this week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Remember, the Adventist Church has a YouTube channel where you can watch ANN Video, ANN In-Depth, and plenty of other videos on prophecy, health, and Bible study.
Just go to YouTube and search for the Adventist Church. Click the subscribe button to make sure you're caught up each week.
And remember to leave a comment or prayer request because there are people who will be praying 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Before we say goodbye, here's some good news from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 13 and 14.
The Bible says, "Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love."
That's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit Adventist.news for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.